The broken engineer Jake Morrison stared at the ceiling of his cramped quarters, watching the flickering emergency lights cast dancing shadows across the metal walls. 6 months ago, he had been the chief engineer of Titan's Edge, the most successful deep space mining operation in the Outer Rim. Now he was just another burden on a dying station. His paralyzed legs a constant reminder of his failure. The mining accident had changed everything. A support beam collapse during a routine maintenance check had crushed his spine, leaving him wheelchair-bound and, according to station management, useless. The company doctors had been brutally honest about his condition. No chance of recovery. With current medical technology, no reason to waste resources on expensive treatments for a single engineer, when they could hire 3 replacements for the same cost. But Jake wasn't just any engineer. Before the accident, he had designed half the systems keeping Titan's Edge operational. His innovations had increased mineral extraction by 40% and reduced equipment failures by 60%. Yet none of that mattered now. All anyone saw was a broken man in a wheelchair. The intercom crackled to life, interrupting his bitter thoughts. Morrison to command center. Immediately. The voice belonged to Commander Sarah Chen, and her tone carried the weight of desperation that had become all too familiar in recent weeks. Jake maneuvered his wheelchair through the narrow corridors of the station. The journey that once took him 3 minutes now required 10. Navigating around damaged sections and avoiding the areas where the strange energy surges were strongest. Other crew members stepped aside as he passed, their faces mixing pity with barely concealed resentment. They all knew resources were running low, and keeping a disabled engineer aboard seemed like a luxury they couldn't afford. The command center buzzed with activity when Jake arrived. Holographic displays showed cascading system failures throughout. The station, red warning lights painted everything in an ominous glow. At the center of it all stood Commander Chen, her usually pristine uniform wrinkled and stained with sweat. "Morrison," she said, without turning around, "how bad is it?" Jake studied the displays, his experienced eye quickly identifying the patterns. Power grid is down to 30% efficiency. Atmospheric processors are failing in sectors 7 through 12. Main communication array is completely dead. He paused, calculating rapidly. At this rate, we have maybe 48 hours before total system collapse. Chen finally turned to face him, and Jake was shocked by what he saw. The commander looked like she had aged 10 years in the past month. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, and her hands trembled slightly as she gestured toward the displays. "It's those damn crystals," she said. "Every time we try to repair something, they interfere. Our tools stop working. Our computers crash. It's like they know exactly what we're trying to do and how to stop us." The crystals. Everyone on the station had heard about them, but few had seen them directly. They had appeared 3 weeks ago. Growing out of the asteroid, they were mining like some kind of alien infection. Beautiful, translucent structures that pulsed with an inner light. They seemed almost alive. More importantly, they seemed intelligent. "The board is breathing down my neck," Chen continued. "They want us to continue mining operations, despite the interference. Apparently, the crystals themselves are worth more than all the rare metals we've extracted combined. But every time we get close to them, our equipment fails." Jake nodded, understanding the impossible situation. Corporate greed versus crew survival, with him caught in the middle. "What do you want me to do about it? I can't even walk to the damaged areas, let alone repair them." Chun's expression hardened. "Actually, you can. We've developed a new mobility suit designed specifically for zero-gravity repairs. It bypasses your spinal injury by using direct neural interface to control mechanical limbs. A technician wheeled forward a sleek device that looked like a cross between a wheelchair and a mechanical spider. Multiple articulated arms extended from a central chassis, each equipped with different tools and sensors. The seat was clearly designed to accommodate Jake's condition. "This is the prototype," Chen explained. "It can navigate through areas too. Dangerous for regular crew members. The neural interface responds to thought patterns, so your paralysis won't be an issue. You'll have full mobility and enhanced strength." Jake examined the machine with professional interest. The engineering was impressive, though he could see several potential flaws in the design. "What's the catch?" "The areas where the crystals are strongest emit some kind of energy that interferes with standard electronics. This suit is hardened against that interference, but we don't know what prolonged exposure might do to the neural interface. Or to you." Understanding dawned on Jake. They weren't offering him a chance at redemption. They were sending him on a suicide mission. The areas closest to the crystals were so saturated with alien energy that previous repair teams had suffered severe neurological damage. Some had fallen into comas. Others had returned, speaking in strange languages that no one could understand. "You want me to go where you can't send anyone else," Jake said flatly. "Because if I don't come back, it's no great loss." Chen had the grace to look uncomfortable. "That's not, we need our best engineer on this. Someone who understands the systems intimately. Someone who can improvise when standard procedures fail. Someone who's already broken," Jake finished for her. The commander sighed. "Jake, I'm going to be honest with you. The board wants to evacuate the station and write off the crew as acceptable losses. I've been fighting them for weeks, but I'm running out of options. If we can't restore basic life support systems, they'll have the excuse they need to abandon us here." Jake looked around the command center at the faces of the crew. These were people he had worked with for years, people who had families waiting for them back on Earth or the colony worlds. The young technician operating the communications station had just gotten married. The security chief had twin daughters he had never met in person. "How long do I have?" he asked. 12 hours to restore power to critical systems. 24 to get the atmospheric processors back online. After that, ... Chen shrugged helplessly. Jake transferred himself into the mobility suit, feeling the neural interfaces connect with his nervous system. Immediately, he experienced sensations he hadn't felt since the accident. The mechanical limbs responded to his thoughts as naturally as his original legs once had. For the first time in months, he felt truly capable. The journey to the mining levels took him through sections of the station he had never seen in such disrepair. Corridors that had once been pristine were now twisted and warped, as if the metal itself was responding to some alien influence. The deeper he went, the stronger the crystal interference became. His suit's displays flickered and occasionally showed impossible readings. At the entrance to Mining Sector 12, Jake encountered his first crystal formation. It emerged from the asteroid's surface like a frozen flower, its faceted surface catching and refracting the light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. As he approached, the crystal's inner light pulsed faster, and his suit's systems began to lag. But something else happened that the briefings hadn't mentioned. The crystal's pulsing seemed to synchronize with his heartbeat. When he moved closer, the frequency changed, as if responding to his presence. It wasn't random interference at all. It was communication. Jake extended one of his suit's mechanical arms toward the crystal, and the pulsing intensified. Data flooded his neural interface, but not the kind of data his instruments could process. This was something else entirely: images, emotions, a sense of vast intelligence trying to make contact across an impossible gap of biology and physics. In that moment of connection, Jake understood something that would change everything. The crystals weren't trying to destroy the station's systems. They were trying to save something, and the mining operation was preventing them from doing it. The revelation hit him like a physical blow. Somewhere in the asteroid, trapped by the very mining equipment he had designed, were young crystal beings. The adult crystals weren't attacking the station out of malice. They were desperately trying to rescue their offspring, and human technology was getting in the way. Jake's hands shook as he processed this information. Everything he had been told was wrong. The crystals weren't a threat to be eliminated or a resource to be harvested. They were parents trying to save their children. As he sat in his mechanical suit, surrounded by alien intelligence and human desperation, Jake Morrison realized that the next 24 hours would determine not just the fate of his crew, but the future relationship between two entirely different forms of life. And somehow, the success or failure of that first contact rested on the shoulders of a broken engineer who everyone had written off as useless. The crystal pulsed again, and this time Jake was certain he detected something like hope in its alien. Communication, perhaps being broken, wasn't the end of his story. Perhaps it was just the beginning of something far more important than anyone could have imagined. The final fix: Jake Morrison spent the next hour learning to communicate with the crystal beings. It wasn't like any form of communication he had ever experienced. Instead of words or sounds, they shared pure concepts and emotions through the neural interface of his mobility suit. The process was exhausting, like trying to translate mathematics into music. But gradually he began to understand their desperate situation. The young crystals were trapped in a cavity, deep within the asteroid, sealed off when the mining equipment had destabilized the surrounding rock. They weren't just imprisoned, they were slowly dying. The crystal beings required a specific type of mineral resonance to survive, and the human mining operation had disrupted the natural harmonic frequencies of their environment. What made the situation even more tragic was that the adult crystals possessed the ability to phase through solid matter, but only when working together in perfect harmony. The mining equipment's electromagnetic fields were creating interference that prevented them from coordinating their rescue efforts. Every time they tried to reach their young, the human technology scattered their collective consciousness. Jake contacted the command center through his suit's communication system. "Chen, I need to speak with you privately, and I need access to the mining operation logs for the past month." "Morrison, what's your status? Are you making progress on the repairs?" "The repairs are the least of our problems. I need those logs now." There was a pause before Chen responded. "Transferring the data to your suit. Jake, you sound different. Are you experiencing any neurological effects from the crystal interference?" Jake almost laughed. Different. He felt more clear-headed than he had in months. For the first time since his accident, he had a purpose that went beyond just surviving. "I'm fine, Commander. Better than fine. But I need you to trust me on something." As the mining logs downloaded to his suit's computer, Jake began to piece together the full scope of what had happened. The first crystal formations had appeared. Exactly 12 hours after a deep drilling operation had breached a natural cavity in the asteroid. The timing wasn't coincidental. The mining had literally broken into a crystal nursery, and the adult beings had been trying to save their children ever since. But the most damning information was in the classified communications between Commander Chen and the corporate board. The company executives had known about the intelligent nature of the crystals almost from the beginning. They had ordered continued mining operations specifically because the crystal formations were worth billions of credits on the exotic materials market. Jake felt a surge of anger that had nothing to do with his own situation. These corporate suits were willing to commit genocide for profit, and they were using his crew as expendable tools to make it happen. "Chen," he said into his communicator, "I know about the classified orders from the board." The silence that followed was deafening. When Chen finally responded, her voice was barely a whisper. "Jake, you don't understand the full situation. I understand that you've been lying to the crew about why the crystals are here. I understand that the board wants to harvest intelligent beings for their market value, and I understand that you've been ordered to sacrifice this entire station to cover up first contact with an alien species. The board made it clear that if we don't contain this situation, they'll send a military fleet to sterilize the entire asteroid. At least this way, some of the crystals might survive in corporate laboratories." Jake processed this information while watching the crystal formation pulse with increasingly frantic patterns. The adult beings could sense their young ones weakening. Time was running out for both species. "There's another option," Jake said finally, "but I need complete access to the mining control systems." "Jake, you can't shut down the mining operation. The board will interpret that as mutiny. They'll have us all court-martialed. Let me worry about the board. Right now, I need you to transfer full control of the mining systems to my suit's interface." Chen hesitated. "That's against every safety protocol we have. One person can't safely operate all the mining equipment simultaneously. Commander, in about 18 hours, everyone on this station is going to be dead unless we solve this problem. Safety protocols aren't really a concern anymore." After another long pause, Chen authorized the transfer. Jake felt the weight of responsibility as control systems for dozens of massive machines came online in his neural interface. It was like suddenly being connected to the entire asteroid, feeling every drill, every excavator, every support beam, as if they were extensions of his own body. But Jake didn't shut down the mining operation. Instead, he began to modify it, working with superhuman speed and precision. He started reprogramming the mining equipment for an entirely different purpose. Drills that had been designed to extract or became surgical instruments capable of precision cutting. Excavators became gentle manipulators that could move massive amounts of material without disturbing delicate crystal formations. Transport conveyors became platforms that could carry the young crystals to safety. The most challenging part was creating the harmonic resonance field that the crystal beings needed to coordinate their rescue efforts. Jake had to turn the entire mining operation into a massive musical instrument, with each piece of equipment contributing to a complex frequency pattern that would allow the adult crystals to work together. It was the most difficult engineering challenge of his career, requiring him to completely reimagine the purpose of every system he had originally designed. His mobility suit's neural interface began to overheat from the computational load, but Jake pushed through the pain. The lives of an entire species depended on his ability to think beyond the limitations of human engineering. As he worked, Jake became aware that he wasn't working alone. The crystal beings were somehow sharing their knowledge with him through the neural connection. They showed him how to create resonance patterns he never could have imagined, how to modulate electromagnetic fields in ways that human science had never discovered. It was a true collaboration between two completely different forms of intelligence. and the result was something neither could have achieved alone. 6 hours into the operation, Jake had transformed the mining facility into something unprecedented. A rescue system designed by both human engineering and alien intuition. The drills began their delicate work, cutting through the collapsed rock that imprisoned the young crystals, while simultaneously generating the harmonic frequencies that allowed the adults to coordinate their efforts. The first young crystal to be freed was no larger than Jake's fist, but it pulsed with the most beautiful light he had ever seen. As it emerged from the cavity, the adult crystal's communication patterns shifted from desperate panic to overwhelming joy. The emotion was so intense that Jake felt tears streaming down his face. One by one, the young crystals were rescued. Each successful extraction was celebrated by a symphony of light and harmonic resonance that filled the entire asteroid. Jake found himself laughing with relief and wonder as he watched families reunite across the vast gulf between biological and crystalline consciousness. But the most remarkable moment came when the last young crystal was safely extracted. Instead of departing immediately, the adult beings remained. Through the neural interface, they communicated a concept that took Jake several minutes to fully understand. They wanted to stay. They wanted to work with the humans. The crystal beings had been searching for intelligent life for millennia, traveling between star systems in hopes of finding others who could share their knowledge and perspective. The mining operation that had threatened their young had also revealed something precious, another species capable of complex thought and creative problem-solving. Jake's engineering modifications had impressed them. His willingness to risk everything to save their children had earned their trust, and his ability to bridge the gap between human technology and crystal consciousness had shown them the potential for unprecedented cooperation. When Jake finally returned to the command center 12 hours later, he was exhausted but triumphant. The station's systems were not only repaired but enhanced by crystal technology that improved efficiency beyond anything in human experience. More importantly, he had established humanity's first peaceful contact with an alien intelligence commander. Chen stared at the readings in disbelief. Power efficiency is up 400%. Atmospheric processors are running smoother than they ever have. And we're detecting structures in the asteroid that weren't there before. The crystals are building us a proper research facility, Jake explained. They want to share their knowledge with us. In exchange, we provide them with insights into human engineering and problem-solving methods. The board will never approve this. They wanted the crystals as a resource, not as partners. Jake smiled, the first genuine smile he had worn since his accident. Let me handle the board. I think they'll find that the economic potential of a partnership far exceeds the value of simple resource extraction. In the weeks that followed, Jake Morrison became the primary liaison between humanity and the crystal beings. His unique combination of engineering expertise and neural interface compatibility made him invaluable in translating concepts between the two species. The corporate board's objections vanished when they realized that crystal-enhanced technology could revolutionize everything from space travel to medical treatment. Instead of harvesting a finite resource, they now had access to an unlimited partnership that would generate profits for generations. But for Jake, the real reward wasn't economic. For the first time since his accident, he felt truly useful again. His disability had become an asset, allowing him to interface with alien technology in ways that able-bodied humans couldn't match. The neural pathways that had been damaged in his spine proved to be perfectly suited for crystal communication. The broken engineer, who everyone had written off as useless, had become the bridge between two civilizations. And in saving the crystal children, he had found a way to save himself. As he sat in his mobility suit, watching human and crystal engineers work together on impossible projects, Jake Morrison realized that sometimes the most important fixes couldn't be measured in watts or atmospheres. Sometimes the final fix was learning that being broken didn't mean being worthless. Sometimes it meant being exactly what the universe needed.